everybody. Welcome, everybody who's joining. I hope this shows up for you guys. It's not scheduled as a premiere. It's a live stream, but it was scheduled, so we'll see who jumps on. I'm excited to catch up with you guys. Have a lot of information to share, a lot of experiences I want to share, which I know are paradigm shifting realities that a lot of people are unaware of. And I'm just going to give everyone just a few seconds to get on and get settled, and then I'm going to get cracking. Because there's nothing like, these live streams, the first couple minutes is when everyone just punches out because everyone's saying hello and everyone's like, get to it. So I want to get right into it and trust that this information finds the ears and eyes of those who need it most. So I want to tell you guys, I just got back from a week-long meditation retreat. It's not my first meditation retreat, but it was incredible. It was a great reminder of things that I know, but that are easy to forget in how fast this life can go and how easily we can get carried away. And I welcome everybody who's just joining. I got to figure out how to see the chat on this thing because it's different than my IG. How do I see the chat? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Lighting on? Yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. Welcome to the chat. Okay, cool. So anyway, as I was saying, it's easy to get carried away and it's easy to go along for the ride. Anybody who's struggled with addiction, anybody who's struggled with health issues in their life or trying to create a change in their life, whether it be a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever kind of change it is, this is a challenge that we all come up against. How are you, Victoria? Great to see you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Like 35 hours of meditation last week. I should 35 hours plus a lot of information about meditation. So I should look like that. But thank you, Victoria. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's amazing what 35 hours of meditation will do to your understanding and to your beliefs and to the amount of joy you can feel. But listen, let me stick with my train of thought. Anybody who has tried to begin to change comes up against themselves, right? Because there's a lot of things that have to happen in order for us to create change in our life. Now, whether that change is something physical, whether it's like, I really want, if I could just get this raise, I would have, if it's more freedom, if it's like, if I could just kick this habit, if I could just stop doing this to myself, change, whatever kind of change it is very, very challenging. In fact, in my opinion and my experience, it's the hardest thing that we can do in this life. And so if you can learn to do it, and you can learn the neuroscience behind it, and you can learn I want to say spirituality, but I don't want anyone to get scared and run away because I believe that there's a very strong spiritual element involved in any kind of transformation, any kind of change. And if you don't believe me, just go ask the butterfly, or better yet, go observe the butterfly and look how beautiful it is and look from whence it came and how long it had to be in that cocoon. That's a metamorphosis right there. That's alchemy, literally, that transformation. And I believe each and every one of us is here to find out what that means to us. We did not incarnate, we did incarnate for kicks. We did incarnate for fun, absolutely. Have you ever had ice cream and or sex? This life is amazing. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But we came here, I think we all have a greater purpose. And sometimes we get lost in this society that we live in, which, I talk about ad nauseum on my podcast and about the control systems put in place through the state, through religion, through the division. It is rampant and it's everywhere, and it will have you very confused. It will have you so confused that you think that you're only this body and that you're here to what? To go to work every day at a job you don't really like? just to pay the bills? Isn't there enough food for everyone? I understand this is the reality that we live in, but it doesn't have to be your reality. That's the reality they want you to believe in. I was just talking to people. I had written a post about it. You know, one of the reasons why they have bombarded us with one belief system after the next that is completely limiting, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Notions like Darwin's dog-eat-dog world, like this corporate cutthroat belief system that we're instilled in. You know, this notion of like, well, you know, humans are flawed and we have a fallen nature and there's original sin. Somehow a baby has committed a sin. Don't even get me started on that. I was raised Catholic, so you know, I have a very strong opinion about the belief systems which were attempted to be instilled in me, and which thankfully I was able to wiggle my way out of. No offense to anybody still practicing. Look, I understand religion can be a vehicle for spirituality and even to God, but in my experience and my understanding is that it's a great divider between people and the Creator. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So we get caught up and we go along for the ride and we don't realize we're going along for the ride. In other words, we become a set of subconscious programs and we don't even know it. And so we lose our free will to this matrix, to this illusion. Because the truth is you're so much greater than this body. You're so much more than it. You'll be here long after this body has expired, and you were here long before it was born. And that's the truth. And if we begin to identify more with the soul and less with the body, more with the all and less with the me, everything becomes a bit more magical. Everything becomes a bit more easy. Because if you understand that your thoughts and feelings, whether they're conscious or not, affect and create the reality in which you experience this life, then you have a very big incentive to become very conscious of what thoughts and feelings you're having. Now, if you're like most people, myself included, formerly, then you are unaware of your incredible creative nature that is innate in you, that was gifted to you by the Creator in its image, his image, if you will, her image, if you will, whatever you prefer. It's everything. It's the Creator. So I don't know if it has a male or female sex. I know that it is the all of the all. It is the black and the white, the up and the down. It's everything and nothing. It is the source from which we came, right? But if you're walking around all day, every day, and you just think that you're little old me, and why is me, and poor is me, and you know, absolutely stuck in a set of victimized subconscious programs, then how can you tap into that divine nature which is in you all the time? It's in you and around you. But if you're not aware of it, how can you utilize it? You have to remember it first. You have to cultivate it and remind yourself. So that's a new way of thinking. And anybody who's tried to instill within themselves a new way of thinking comes up against the old way. And this is the problem, this is the challenge. The old way has to perish, like the phoenix. It has to be burned away. You really do have to unlearn everything that has made you who you think you are. If you're going to create a new personal reality, in other words, a new personal personality, then you have to replace the old. You're never going to be able to do it from the same set of consciousness belief systems, limiting belief systems that has created the problems that you now find yourself facing, whatever they may be, whether they're in, obviously everything is in relationship, but whether they're job related, whether they're interpersonal, whether they're, you know, spouse, sibling, family, living situation, job situation. If you've been coming up against the same issues for as long as you can remember, then it's time to change your thinking and your energy. And that is the great challenge. Ask any alcoholic, ask anybody who's struggled with addiction, and they understand the power of the subconscious mind and the fact that just like an alcoholic, just like any addict, we are all running a series of programs that we are addicted to. Some people are rageaholics. Some people are addicted to other biochemical reactions in the body. Now, whether they're getting them externally or creating them internally, you can rest assured they are going to seek them out day after day. Maybe one day they say, you know what? I'm not gonna drink today. I'm on the wagon. And maybe they make it a day. Maybe they make it 2 days. But everybody, I think, has had a friend who has gone, sober for a little while. And then what happened when you talked to them or you saw them? Maybe you saw them at the bar. What did they say? Hey, Ray, what happened, man? And Ray will tell you, I don't know. I got a phone call and I got this and this happened and then I fucking here I am. What happened? Ray doesn't really know what happened. He means that when he says that. He knows he got a phone call and then all of a sudden he was triggered into a response. And his body whispered up to his conscious mind and said, hey, Ray, we'll take it from here, pal, okay? Way to go. 2 days sober, here's your coin. And back to the bar. And that's how the subconscious works. And that's why it's so hard to change. Because any change that you try to make is going to be resisted by your body's habitual and a very addictive nature. Whatever it is. If another way of putting it is, people who you can go on vacation, right? And for a few days you're fine. But if you're the type of person who is used to going out into a commute and raging in traffic, by the way, you're not in traffic, you are traffic. Only human beings could possibly be one of 100 people, 1,000 people in a line of cars and be angry at the rest of the cars for blocking their way, as if they were not in the line with the rest of the cars blocking traffic. Only a human being and an ego could somehow translate that situation into, God damn these other people. It's hilarious when you think about it. But remember that. You aren't in traffic. You are traffic. Okay? Oh man, I love that. So where was I going with this? My point is, the person who is used to going out on a commute every day and raging and having that kind of road rage, they're going to find a reason to do it even when they're in Maui for 2 weeks. It doesn't matter. Stress is habitual. And the title of this podcast is Reclaiming Health. And one of the greatest, if not the greatest, catalysts for disease and illness is stress, because stress will break down the body. And most of us are living in a state of stress, whether it be mild or high anxiety, daily. And we've become so used to it that we don't even realize it. And we're governed by it. Hi, Yolanda. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Let me see. You look, oh yeah, okay, I read that. And then having the largest ego is God realization. What's up, CJ? What's up, Yolanda? Great to see you. You can take Bob out of New York City and send him to Maui, but within a few days he's going to be raging in traffic in a taxi there, because that is his habituated and very much addictive response. And so, but if you're not aware of that, if you think everything is happening to you, and that you're constantly being victimized by external circumstances of this person, that situation. I was supposed to have this done. That person was like, everything becomes your tormentor. And what you don't realize then is you're continually putting out a state of dissonance. The reason why I used the image of Dr. Emoto on the thumbnail of this live stream, this broadcast, is because Dr. Emoto came into a great understanding and showed the world a great truth about the nature of life and cellular structure. And I have it tattooed on my chest. This is a water crystal. And what Dr. Emoto did, for those of you who don't know, is he wanted to see if water had memory, if water could store emotion. And so he would speak into the water and he would say things like, I love you, thank you, peace, harmony. And the water, then he would flash freeze the water and look at it under a microscope. And he would see the water take on this beautiful geometry. This water crystal is an amalgam of thank you, I love you, and thank you, I love you, and one other beautiful thing that I can't remember because I must have burned that brain cell. And then he took the water and then he said, I hate you. He said, he used ugly language and negative emotions, and he spoke into that water and he flash froze that water. And do you know what that water looked like under the microscope? It looked like chaos. It looked like somebody, like if you spat on the ground. It looked like complete dissonance. And what is disease, my friends? Disease is a dissonance in the cell. What's the opposite of dissonance? The opposite of dissonance is coherence. And we can create that. We can create coherence with our hearts and our minds. But we first have to become aware of what we're already creating if we're going to change it, right? But coherence doesn't need to come in like certain moments of the day when you happen to be like petting your dog. I mean, sure, it should come, but you can create it anytime you want. And there's a wonderful for those of you who have heard of HRV and heart rate variability and what that does when you can sync it up with heart-mind coherence. I'm telling you, magical things happen to your body and to your life when you learn this technique and this practice. And anyone can do it. And if you're interested in it, I recommend checking out the Heart Math Institute and the science behind what I'm talking about. Let me see. Ted Danger just wrote, I have had the book. I've had his book. Awesome, Ted. It's a fantastic book. I know that Veda Austin has done a tremendous amount of work on top of Dr. Emoto's. The skeptics are always trying to say, oh, no one's ever reproduced Dr. Emoto's work, which is crazy. And I don't know how they even got that idea to float because it's been massively reproduced. And Veda has done incredible work. I'm trying to get her on my podcast. She's kind of blown up a lot over the last year, but we have a few mutual acquaintances. So I'm working on that. Would love to talk to her about that. Anyway, so this, I'm going to tie this all together. Now, stay with me. So if you understand that we are at all times walking around and sending and receiving, which we are, and that's a fact. There's a biomagnetic field around you as a human being. The same thing when you look, you see the leaf. Did you ever see that picture of the leaf? And then they use Corellian, or what do you call that? Corellian? No, that's Star Wars. What's the name of the photography they use to capture the bio aura of it? They could call it an aura. That's kind of a new age term, but it's the biofield, right? And they showed that when they chop the leaf off, there's still that, you can still see it. It's like you can still see where it was. The field is still there. And what people don't understand, because we're not taught this, is that, how was the Yucatan? I haven't been to the Yucatan in about 2 years, Ted, but it was great when I was there. How did you, because of the Shipibo? Oh, yeah. Anyway, okay. So, what were they saying? Yes. So this ties together, okay? Because we're looking for homeostasis, right? But if you're unaware that your predominant habitual nature is addicted to stress hormones, how can you find homeostasis? How can you find any kind of harmony? And how can you tell if you fall into that category? Well, let me say that, if you have to stop and think about it, there's a likelihood that you've been mostly unconscious. And that goes for most people. That's not a jab, it's not a hit. Most people are unconscious. Hey, Flex, good to see you. Most people are walking around completely unaware that 95% of today, they're going to have the exact same thoughts and feelings that they did the day before from the moment they wake up. Most people aren't aware of that. They wake up, they go through the routine, they brush their teeth, they go to the bathroom, they have their coffee, they have breakfast, they work out, they go to work, they come back, they're pissed off. They do the same thing they did yesterday without realizing they're doing the exact same thing as they did yesterday. Do you understand? Corellian photography. Thank you, my friend. That's right. Corellian. Oh, wait, so I had it right. It just sounded so Star Wars. Let me see. New Waves, welcome. So the field, and this is, we're not taught this, which is insanity. Maybe one day we'll live in a sane world where we are taught about the biofield and about the fact that, so if you understand the biofield, you can begin to understand that there is if this is all a simulation and this is the matrix that we're playing in, right? Then if you want to use a metaphor, or maybe it's an analogy, one of the two, if you wanted to change something on yourself, you wouldn't go to the mirror and try to fix the mirror. But that's what most people do when they go about trying to change in this virtual reality game called life that we live in, right? Most people are trying to rub the mirror and they're like, "It's not working, it's not working." You have to rub the source. And what is the source? The source comes from within. The source is literally, we're being almost projected, and you can change the projection. And this is how spontaneous medical air quotes for my listeners, how medical miracles happen, how tumors disappear, how people go into remission after, how people come back from being, basically declared dead. I had Anita Morjani on my podcast a few months ago. The woman was literally dead. And her body had failed in every way. Every organ had failed. She was in a coma, right? And she went out of body when she transitioned, and she could see herself, and she was like, oh my God, she felt so free. You have to listen to that podcast if you have not heard it. Anita she's a godsend. She's such a gift. But she talks about how she went through this whole process when she was transitioning, and she could see her body. And then she had to decide, to make a long and beautiful story a little shorter, she had to decide. But she could see that if she went back into her body, she would heal, and she would heal fast. She could see, because she knew that what had made her sick was no longer going to be projected into that body, and that it wasn't going to be easy. But if she decided to continue on in this life, and she was shown how a lot of people and their life's dharma or karma or their work, their mission here was going to depend on her completing hers. That gave her incentive to go back into her body. She didn't want to go back into that 75-pound, cancer-ridden, essentially dead body that was in a coma, and all that was left of her body was tumors. She didn't want to go back into that. She had been suffering in that body for years, but she decided to, because she knew, and she told me this, that she was going to get better, that she was going to heal, and she did. She did. She went from being dead and the family saying goodbye to going into complete remission and leaving the hospital within 8 weeks. And it's all documented. I'm not making this up. You can read her book, Dying to Live. I think that's what it's called, Dying to Live, by Anita Morjani. Now, what happened? It's not like she got some miracle treatment. They didn't try an experimental drug while she was mostly dead. Her spirit came back into her body. She saw why she got sick. Do you know why she says she got sick? One word: love or lack thereof. When she was shown her life review, she was shown how she wasn't shown all the people she hurt. She was shown all the time she hurt herself by putting everyone before her. Do you understand? She was shown how she made herself sick, how she gave herself cancer. It wasn't because of, it was because of the choices that she had made and the conditioning that she got in this life trying to please everyone and being a doormat for everyone else. And that is a recipe for misery and illness. You will resent and hate yourself if you continue to put everyone else before you. And we've been conditioned in this society to think it's selfish to put ourselves first. And that's why we're so sick. That's why America is one of the sickest places on the planet. It's not just the food and the shots and everything else. It's also the belief systems that we're instilled with. Okay, let me read a comment. You said you were going there every year, Yucatan. I have a home in, oh, cool, man, in Utila. I listen to many of your podcasts. Thanks, Ted. I do try to make it to Mexico at least once a year, although I'm overdue. It's been 2 years. So thank you for the reminder. Let me see New Waves. Oh, thank you. All the best. Thank you. All the best to you too, New Waves. So I have been fortunate to have come into a community of people through my work with Dr. Joe Dispenza and his retreats, which have become, he's blown up. I mean, when I started going to his retreats, there was 400 people and room for more. And now they're selling out, and the wait list is 10,000 strong, and they're selling out in minutes. And people are coming from all over the world because they've heard the power of his techniques and what he's teaching, the power that it grants its user to create a whole new body, a whole new life. That's what it's all about. But you got to get beyond the old. And this is the challenge. Because when we're living in stress, the body never has a chance to go into a homeostasis. And that's why meditation is so great. Meditation is great for 1,000 reasons. I'm its biggest advocate because it saved my life in 1,000 ways. I would not be sitting here if I did not find a way to quiet my monkey mind, which never had anything good to say to me and was always encouraging me to do things that I hated myself for doing. And I struggled with addiction, and I know where it comes from, and I know I didn't have an easy go at it in my childhood. There was a lot of abuse, but you can know bad stuff has happened to you all day, and guess what? You can talk about it, you can puzzle it out, but it's not going to change you. It's not going to change the programming that you got from that abuse, that you got from that trauma, whether it be in this life or the last. Many of us are born with trauma that comes from the womb. Many of us are born with it that comes from our past lives, our future lives, past lives. Time is funny like that. So what to do? This is what I came up against. Once you can puzzle it out, great. Now I know, because I didn't know, and many people don't know, and that's another thing we could talk about. But most people are, we have a natural ability to compartmentalize trauma. We do that to keep us safe, and that's fine. Some people need to figure out where it comes from in order to then change the behaviors that have become systemic and symptomatic of that trauma. That's fine. That's the route I took. But even when I found out, I was doing talk therapy, and I was very clear on why I was so screwed up. Fantastic. 3 years later, and I'm still completely screwed up. It didn't change anything. Why? Because you can know something, and it's not going to change your programs. Your subconscious is going to be running the show until you take the power back from it. And that takes a tremendous act of volition and will, right? There's just no two ways about it. And most people didn't have the best parents. Our parents were better than their parents 99 times out of 100. Yes, absolutely. They did. I do believe that every generation, almost across the board, does a little better, right? But some of us are here to do a lot better. Some of us are here to transcend mediocrity. Yeah, you know what word I'm trying to say. We're here to break the chains, right? To break the generational chains that have kept us down. And when you do that, when you embark on that, you're doing it not just for yourself, you're doing it for your ancestors, you're doing it for your future ancestors, for your soul family, whether you have biological children or not. You're doing it for everyone around you. It is the hero's journey, and it's the last one left. It's the only one that we're really here to take, if you ask me. I believe that. Let me see. Mediocrity. Thank you, Yolanda. That's right. Let me see what else I missed. Ted said, I'm off to the theater. Oh, enjoy the theater, my friend. I don't know what. Okay. All right. I love the theater. I come from the theater. Yolanda spent some time in the theater too. So, as I was saying, what are some of the ways you can easily say to yourself, okay, well, am I one of these people who's falling into this trap? You know, I mean, today when you woke up, did you do the exact same thing as you did yesterday? Chances are you did. Chances are you did. Did you have any new thoughts? Were you conscious of the thoughts that you were having at all today? Or did you just go about your day thinking like you do every other day? You know, so we get stuck in a routine, right? This is a fact. And the more we get stuck in a routine, the harder it is to realize, you know, you can't see the peanut butter from the jar, in other words, right? No, you really can't. And that's why a lot of people have a lot of trouble seeing themselves until they do. And then things become very clear, or at least clearer. So as far as health goes, if things are starting to break down, if you're starting to have issues, then that's accumulative, right? And so you can wait until it gets worse and worse and worse, and then you get a diagnosis, or you can start to try to puzzle out all the great many things that you've been doing that have contributed to this dissonance or illness. Yeah. So, what's the litmus test? If you are unaware of most of your thoughts and feelings throughout the day, what I mean is, like, you know, are you conscious of the reason why you're doing things, or are you just doing them? That is the question. Because most people they're just along for the ride. They don't even know who has the wheel. I'll give you an example, okay? Bruce Lipton taught me this. He said, Faust, he said, me and you are driving to the airport, right? We're having a conversation the whole time. He said, then we pass a sign and we miss the exit, and I say, did you see that, Faust? And I say, no, I missed it. He said, you missed it? Well, who was driving the car? He said, well, I was. He said, well, weren't you watching where you were going? Well, I thought I was, but I wasn't. Who's driving the car? You know what I mean? I was driving, but I wasn't really driving. I mean, the subconscious knows how to drive. I can put my attention on Bruce and talk to him and be blah, 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 not really watching. That's what we do in life. We go unconscious. And then we become a series of enslavement programs, tasks, things that don't mean anything truly to our soul, right? And so I'm trying to encourage people who are struggling with their daily routine, with the daily struggle, you know, and why it has to be, and people who feel victimized by it, people who feel that all this shit is happening to me, you know, that is a victim mentality. If you are thinking that way, then I'm sorry to break it to you. It's a hard pill to swallow, but you are the creator of your life, and you're responsible for it. And in actuality and in truth, no one can make you feel anything. People can do things that you can respond to in a way that makes you feel bad or good or happy or sad, but you have all the power. And you can either be in a creative, conscious state of being, or you can be a reaction. And most people are a walking reaction, quickly triggered. And another barometer that I use is the pinch in accordance with the ouch. Now, most people are walking around screaming ouch, and they didn't even really get pinched. Where does that come from? It comes from past trauma, past experiences. And in fact, we're living our lives out as a series of those past experiences. And most of them weren't that great to begin with. But we're drawing from that. And so how do you change that? That's the question. That's the challenge. How do you begin to change that? Well, I only know of a few ways that I can share. I know of the path that I took and that I'm on and that I practice daily. I know that the first thing I had to do was become hyper conscious of my unconscious thoughts and feelings. Because the only way you're going to get to the bottom of why you're doing things, why you're self-sabotaging, why you're finding yourself stuck in the same loop, in the same relationships, the same shitty jobs, the same shitty people, and the same bitter feeling at the end of the day, the only way you're going to get to the bottom of it is by becoming very, very conscious of your unconscious thoughts. Do you understand? Because that is the programming that is taking you down those roads every day, and you keep stepping in the same holes and hurting your ankle over and over again, and you're like, who put that hole there? Because your GPS has been set up for that. And what I'm saying is there's a new way to do things. You can reprogram your GPS so that instead of running into the same potholes, you could run into beautiful roads, beautiful horizons, exotic places, adventures, people, joy, fun, magic, miracles. That's what we're here to experience, my friends. That's the only ticket in town as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what you have this life, right? Why would you spend it being miserable? Why would you spend it being stuck? If you take even the first step on a healing journey and doing the kind of work that everyone avoids for most of their life, they call it shadow work for a reason, because it can be dark and it can be scary, and no one wants to visit those places that they've walled off in their mind, because there's a lot of pain that lives there oftentimes. But right around that pain, if you can get around it, if you can get through it, is joy, is love, is a greater capacity for empathy. You cannot block off aspects of yourself without blocking off the opposite. So you think that you're protecting yourself, and maybe you were for a while, but now you're keeping yourself also from feeling the opposite end of that spectrum, which is usually a joy, a love for life, an immense amount of gratitude. I mean, every day there is something beautiful to behold, something beautiful to be grateful for. But if your heart's been hardened by this life, those moments are going to be few and far between for you. And my God, what are you missing? So the other thing, especially men, and I know that a lot of my subscribers are men, we have been, many of us, no pun intended, beaten into a hardened heart and taught the craziest things about being male, like boys don't cry, or shut up or I'll give you something to cry about. I mean, when I used to get hurt, I was far more afraid of having to go and tell my father that I was hurt and that I would need medical attention than I was of bearing the pain of the broken bone I was sitting with. Honest to God. I would let a lot of time pass in pain before I went, because I knew when I told him I was going to be in more pain. I can laugh about it now, but that's the way we work, right? And so what kind of conditioning is that? So what I'm trying to make my way through and tell you guys and share with you is that in order to change, the most effective way I understand to do it is to change the programming. It's the most expedited way. So I'll give you an example. Meditation gives you access to your software, okay? It lets you dial down your brain waves, slow down your brainwave activity enough to begin to plant new suggestions. Now, the pharmaceutical industry understands this. That's why in America, and I think one other place, the only place it's legal to do this, the pharmaceuticals run their ads late at night, really late at night, when you're watching a boob tube and you're like sitting there like mostly asleep and you got some drool hanging out of your mouth, and they hit you with that shingles commercial, right? Or, God, there's 1,000 of them. I watched cable TV when I was on vacation a few weeks ago. I was laughing my ass off. I could not believe the pharmaceutical ads. I mean, like, they spend 30 seconds telling, like, they have this guy, he's like carrying, he's throwing his kid in the air. I have no idea what medicine they're saying. And then they spend the next 60 seconds listing the side effects, which include death, suicidal thoughts, projectile vomiting, every type of terrible death known to man. That is the final minute, and they say I'm really fast. I mean, I was in hysterics. I could not believe it. But they play those commercials at night. Why? Because at night, when you start to get tired, your brain wave activity slows down into a theta, right before it goes into a sleep mode, which is an alpha, and you are very suggestible. And they can plant seeds, and they know that. They know that. Don't think they don't know that. And then what? Then you wake up, you're like, I gotta get that shingles vaccine. Oh, my God, I don't want to end up like that guy I saw. They capture you, right? They capture you. The commercials also describe the disease, which is exactly, they're planting a seed. And my God, when you go down the rabbit holes that I've gone down, you realize that we've been conned and just, I mean, we have been victimized by the powers that be. Don't get me wrong. A lot of the health issues that we are up against come from these awful creations, going way back. I mean, I was just listening to a podcast with Dr. Suzanne Humphries on Joe Rogan. She wrote a book called Dissolving Illusions, okay? Now, my father is very old school. Many of you have heard me talk about him. He's a boomer, I think. He's like 70. Say he's getting up there. I think he's 75. Anyway, very stuck in his ways. I mean, at one point he even said to me, he goes, hey, listen, I have my beliefs, okay? You're not going to change me. Don't waste your time. I'm like, all right, fine. Put it that way. I'll stop trying to teach you about things I know about that you obviously don't. Okay, old man, sure. But my twin brother bought him the book, Dissolving Illusions by Suzanne Humphries, and he read it. And I swear to God, I was on vacation, he was there, and I happened to be in the next room when he finished it. And I literally heard the book close. I heard the close of a book, and I heard him get up, and I heard him say, well, I'll never take another vaccine again. And I said, what? I thought I was hearing things. I was like, did I just hear that right? But that's how powerful this book is. And it's a scientific book. Every word is, you cannot write a book about that subject, which I shouldn't even be saying aloud on YouTube, without vetting and sourcing every single thing you say. You will be crucified and burned at the stake. Absolutely. And Dr. Suzanne Humphries has done it. It's called Dissolving Illusions. If you want to understand the truth about that industry and why they need blanket immunity just to exist, and they've had it since 1986, and if you want to understand how far back that treachery goes and what they've been doing with our health for over 100 years, read that book. If you're not a big reader, download Joe Rogan's podcast with Dr. Suzanne Humphries and you'll get a good idea of what I'm talking about. How did we go off on that tangent? Anyway, back to health and harmony and homeostasis. Thank you for bearing with me, my friends. So I used meditation to come into a greater state of health, to overcome a lot of very destructive addictions that I hated myself for having, and was in such a constant loop of self-loathing and addiction and shame and guilt. And you know what? Those words are foreign to me now, my friends. Shame, guilt. I don't shame my children. Nothing good can come of that, except more shame. And I teach them. I don't punish them. I allow them to experience consequences. And there's a big difference. I was punished, and it didn't really work out for me, as I've been saying. But so it's an understanding, right? There's a natural law of cause and effect. And the meditation retreat that I just came from, what we learn to do is, instead of being stuck in a cause and effect world, you can learn to cause and effect. You can become the creator of your reality. And so what I did, and what I'm encouraging you guys to do, is to begin a practice of self-reflection. Meditation is my favorite, where you can begin to quiet the mind enough to allow information in. People who practice meditation, who practice quieting the mind, find themselves with information that they didn't know they knew. And you ask them, like, how did you know that? I don't know. It just came to me. Did you ever hear of people having downloads? That's a real thing. I don't know if downloads is the best word, but your mind is always sending and receiving. And if you quiet it long enough, you will come into great insight. I think it was the book of Matthew that said, those who sat in darkness saw great light. I wonder what they meant by that. You can perceive a great many things when you quiet the pond, right? So Bruce Lipton has different programs which use hypnosis, which is the end game of and part of the meditations that I do, that get into the software and reprogram for success, reprogram for happiness. Because if you've been programmed for victimization and misery, and you know, some people are just, everybody knows that one friend who's like, God, they used to be nice, but now they're kind of an asshole now, right? You know, like, and they get a pass. They get a pass for it. You know, they're like that's just how Bobby is. He's an asshole. Like, wait a minute, why does Bobby get to be an asshole? I mean, what does he get? He's allowed? Like, that's just part of who he is now? Yeah, that's become part of who he is. That's become his personality. Bobby probably doesn't realize he's an asshole, or probably doesn't even care. He's not conscious of the fact that he's now known as the asshole. What happened to Bobby? I don't know. But whatever happened to him, he became miserable long enough to adopt it as a personality trait. And now everyone who has to deal with Bobby has to keep in mind and walk on eggshells, because they know Bobby is easily triggered into, you know, chaos. And everybody knows someone like that, right? We all have friends who when they walk into the room, they light it up. Their energy lights up the room. We love being around those guys. You know, they make us laugh. They're fun to be around. Those people have a different vibration. They're not known as assholes, you know. They're fun. They've cultivated a different set of personality traits, right? And you can too. And so one of the things I'm advocating for is both meditation, first the practice of it, and then you can look into guided meditations, right? If you want to reprogram, if you're suffering from chronic, any kind of illness, comorbidities, whatever it is, everything and everything is malleable. Do you understand that? I just came back from a meditation retreat where I saw the data, the scientific data of people who have done everything from reverse ALS to grow back their thyroid, literally grow back their thyroid, which redefines and must redefine what we imagine is possible in this human body. Because as far as I know, no one before this person who has had their thyroid taken out grew it back. And that's a fact. And I saw the scans to prove it. It was not an elaborate con or hoax. They weren't selling me anything. They were showing me the data. And data is one of the best things that you can look at, because people can talk about these things all day. I've seen every type of data, and this is the power that we have. And when I was talking about the blueprint and the projection and the manner in which we change, you can go about it the old-fashioned way, the Newtonian way. You can move and effort and work and, struggle every day, or you can begin to realize that you can make those same changes within yourself and see them reflected in your outer world. You absolutely have that creative capacity. Most people have just not been taught. I know that I wasn't taught. I was very much the victim of everything and everybody, and I was constantly blaming everyone. And I was taught that, and there's no shame in that. But if you become aware that you're a person who tends to blame everyone else for the mood you're in, for the state that you're walking around in, and that you have given away your power to everything but to who it belongs to, you, then you can begin to take stock of that and begin to take responsibility of that. And that's the first step to change. Aaron says, I'm gonna just, out of respect, keep it G-rated. You need to heal that shirt. Thank you, Aaron. I actually bought this shirt like this, but I appreciate that sentiment. Anyway, that was funny. So Bruce Lipton also has programs on his website. I'm not an affiliate. I've talked to Bruce on many occasions, and I respect his work. Dr. Joe Dispenza is another incredible person with a huge body of work. If it is change you are seeking, look into Dr. Joe Dispenza. I cannot recommend him enough. I am touching on aspects of his work, of Bruce's work, of what I've come to understand and experience through their work. But I can do it no justice, and I would never try. I'm just trying to give you a taste of what you may be looking for. And if you're listening to this, it's not by accident, because there are no accidents. There's only cause and effect. But we're also governed by these laws, by these universal laws of like attracting like, whether that be for good or bad, right? I tell people all the time, this universe, God, the creator, source, it's a lot like a genie in a bottle. And it's going to grant you your every wish, but it's not going to be the wish that you speak out loud. It's going to be the vibration and frequency which with you go about your day. And if you go about your day and you find a way to crack open that heart and become conscious of your thoughts, and you're walking around in love and appreciating everything and everyone, not every second of every day. I'm not saying you need to walk around like some crazy hippie on ecstasy and acid, although maybe you could do that for a couple of days. I mean, I would never say not to. It's fun. But what I'm saying is there's moments throughout the day, so that becomes your predominant signal, right? And God, source, the universe, creator, is waiting to give you back what you seem to enjoy most. So if you're a person who is stuck in a loop of outrage and just self-pity and victimization and blaming everyone and looking to external reasons for why you need to be unhappy today, if that's the signal you're putting out, then God, source, the creator, is going to say, oh my, look at this beautiful, beautiful creation. Look how happy they are. They're always putting out that signal. Let me give them more situations and people and events that will help them facilitate more of that feeling, right? That's why we get stuck. I mean, and so this is where people get stuck also in the act of trying to manifest something, right? Because the moment you feel separate from what you're trying to manifest, then you have created separation. You have to tune into that, whatever it is, and be grateful for it and know that it is already here. So then every prayer becomes a prayer of gratitude, because you know that what you're looking for has already found you. Even if it hasn't shown up in front of you, even if it hasn't fallen from the sky, which it may, if you start doing this work right, it may, watch out, get your helmet ready, things fall from the sky. They absolutely do. Then you start to understand how the stories of Jesus and the miracles he was able to create, how he did that, how we can all do that. Yeshua understood what and who he was. And every time he did a miracle, it was a prayer of thanks for what was already done, because it never entered into his mind for an iota of a second that he was not capable of doing that miracle, of healing that person or feeding those people, right? That is the power. That is the true definition of faith. And most of us only have an idea of what that word means. We don't really know it because we haven't experienced it. But if you asked me if I could get up right now, if I could stand up, I would tell you, yeah, I know I can. I wouldn't say I believe it. I wouldn't say I believe I can. I would say I know I can. And there's a big difference in that. And when you can tune into something with such faith that you know it's here, you can be grateful for it. And that goes against everything we're taught most of our lives. Seeing is believing, and all the materialistic philosophy that we're bombarded with from the time we're little is the opposite of how this reality works. But for people who are looking for health, you have to go back to the beginning, right? You have to go back to fundamentals, the basics. Because if you're living every day out of whack in a state of stress, it's going to be very, very hard to find health, wholeness, homeostasis, harmony. You first have to find that and cultivate that within. I've been part and in so many conversations and sat with so many people, and they all say the same thing. If you want to see something truly mind-blowing, the power of this work, go to Dr. Joe Dispenza's YouTube page and listen to his testimonials of transformation. And let me tell you, transformation is a code word for healing, because you can't say healing in this completely twisted age we live in. You're not supposed to. You can get in trouble. You can't say things like cured. Anyway, check out his playlist. Listen to those transformations. Spend 1 hour, and you will reset the bar on what you understand to be possible, as I have, and as so many people have who have come to this work. Okay, I'm gonna check out. Hi, Adriana. I'm gonna check out these comments here. The Holy Spirit, yeah. If you wish to unlock the secrets of the universe, that's right. Think in frequencies and vibrations. Nikola Tesla knew that. That's why, what's his name? Well, Morgan and these other bastards had to attack him and slander him. So I want to open it up to anybody who has any questions about a situation or anything I can. Hey, Toby, good to see you, brother. How you doing, man? How's your twin? To anybody who has any questions about anything they just heard, if you're just joining me, we've been talking a lot about returning to homeostasis, returning to health, and some of the obstacles that we come up against in that process, which are inevitable, but certainly can be navigated. If anybody has any questions, I'm all ears. I don't know if I missed any comments besides the one about my shirt. Yes. Okay, I think I'm caught up. Anyway, what you guys got anything for me? Let me see. Yeah, hi, I'm on the phone. You're on the. Oh, nice, dude. Tell him I said what's up. Well, it's great to see everyone. Listen. If there's any reference that I stated, I'll try to remember and I'll put it in the video description. And I'm going to probably do a very similar live stream tomorrow on Instagram for those of you who follow me there. Probably not exactly the same, but something of the sort. Yeah, Scotty, Toby, Yolanda, everyone, Adriana, Flix, Ted, anyone still here? I appreciate you guys joining me. If you guys don't have any burning questions for me, Tiberius. Is that your brother's name, Tiberius? That's crazy. Toby and Tiberius. That's like my twin brother. His name's Frank. Anyway, by the way, guys, I went to this meditation retreat, right? Thank you, Adriana. So are you. Appreciate that. So I went to this retreat, guys, right? And one of the things that I put into my focus was like opportunities, like guests for my podcast, and like, how can we make it a little easier, like do I like so I don't have to try so hard. If I get some people on who are like, yeah. So before the retreat is even over, I get a call from somebody who works for me, and they're like, Jason Shurka just wrote us back after 5 emails and 2 years later, just out of the blue, and said he'll come on. I was like, what? Really? Jason? So I just interviewed Jason Shurka, who I have a lot of respect for, and I enjoy his work a lot. And it's very controversial, some of it, very interesting. But he's a big personality. We got along so great. I knew we would because we have similar missions. Very cool cat. And then I got a call from who? Ken O'Keefe. Some of you may have heard that name. Another very controversial figure, very outspoken, has been featured on a massive amount of documentaries. Most of those documentaries are not on YouTube. Let's just say that. Ken O'Keefe, he has a tattoo on his face. He is a former soldier, American, I think he was Special Forces. I don't know if he was a Marine. He was a Marine, I think. Very outspoken, very articulate, and very educated about what's going on, what's been going on, and what America has been doing with Israel for the longest time. So I'm excited. I'm scheduling that. I just had Mary Rodwell on. For those of you guys who are in the UFO community, Mary Rodwell is legend. She's documented like over 3,000 abduction cases. Incredibly enlightened woman. She kind of reminds me of like a female David Icke, only slightly more spiritual. She's really, really well-spoken and so insightful. And I've been trying to get her for years. And lo and behold, I recorded with her yesterday. I mean, it's like, so all these things happen, is what I'm saying. You can change your reality. And you don't have to leave the house to do it. Do you understand? You can change what's being beamed in, but you got to learn how. And you got to first become conscious of your unconscious thoughts. So that's what this broadcast has been about. And I want to thank everyone who joined. Is it posted, Toby? Not yet. So those are being edited. So in the next couple of weeks, they'll be coming out. Yeah, so I got Ken O'Keefe I'm scheduling with. I got a few other people I don't want to say because I've not locked them down yet, but I think a lot of good things are happening, and it's from this work I'm doing with my eyes closed. It's not from the phone calls. It's not from. It's everything starts to happen when you get out of your own way. I really believe that. But edit the MR one first. Yeah, I will, Toby. Listen, it's great to see everyone. I'm wishing everyone a happy Friday night. Some of you, I'm sure I'll see online tomorrow for Instagram. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, this live stream. And for all my listeners, listen, we have a fantastic Patreon page. And if you guys want to support me in more ways than one, we have incredible tiers. There's a link in my Instagram bio, and there should be one. I'll put it in the video description. We have really cool personalized merch. I'm trying to build a community of spiritual, truth-seeking, rabbit hole, spelunking maniacs like myself who enjoy, the proper versions of history as opposed to the nonsense that we're taught. There's a lot of opportunities in the different tiers. So please check out our Patreon page. If you enjoyed this live stream and podcast and you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. If you are on Spotify or iTunes, we're trying to garner our first sponsor. When every other video you put out is exposing government corruption, whether it be right or left, the sponsors they tend to shy away. And I know that's true whether you have 100,000 followers or 1 million followers, because I have friends who they lose their sponsors whenever they go against the right or left. If they stick with one side, which I'll never do, they keep their sponsors. But I'm not really in this for the money, but I do appreciate any support you all are willing to give me. I love you guys. I'm wishing you all the best. I'll see many of you tomorrow night. Thank you for tuning in. Leave us a review if you will, and please share this podcast in any way you can. Thank you so much. God bless you.